The Boneyard is a new crime thriller from Lionsgate, directed by Asif Akbar and co-starring Curtis 50 Cent Jackson and Mel Gibson. Here's a scene from the film and my interview with Nora Zehetner.
No, thanks, detective. That stuff will kill you. Insomnia, high blood pressure, and anxiety.
So, you're one of those guys, huh? A health nut.
Oh, hell no. I'm a swig of bourbon, toke of weed in the morning type guy. That stuff will kill you, too, but it's a lot more fun. Oh, I don't suppose either of you have a spliff or a stiff one on you, no?
No, sir, we don't.
Just tested. Good work, detective. Now, listen, I didn't get any sleep on the plane. You mind if I close my eyes?
Knock yourself out. Well, you scared of flying?
No, I love it. These flight attendants on these private jobs, they play with enough booze to put your lights out, but there was no flight attendant.
Well, we can take you by your hotel, give you a chance to get some rest, and maybe...
Oh, no. I want to go straight to HQ. I want to be on a plane and out of here by the end of the week, you know? But looking at the file, I want to spend as much time on this one as I possibly can. You play golf, detectives?
A little bit. You?
Occasionally. You?
No.
If you dig any more holes in that boneyard, you're gonna have a back nine.
And joining me now, she's one of the stars of The Boneyard, Miss Nora Zehetner. Welcome, Nora.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's good to see you again. Last time we saw you were here in town for Blood for Dust.
Yes.
We interviewed Rod Blackhurst on the show for that film. And I was a little disappointed. You didn't get a lot to do in that, but you get more to do in this one, which is good. And I want to talk to you about it. But first, I was curious. You've been in show business since childhood, practically. Like, how did you get into the business? Like, what's your origin story?
Well, I went to the special program where you go to college 2 years early when I was 16, but it was a math and science program. So I couldn't take anything that I was actually particularly interested in. And I was traveling to LA once a month because I was a buyer for a clothing store. And I always loved movies. Like basically I loved movies. And so I just had this idea that maybe I would move to LA and try it out because I had never actually, acted even in school. So I didn't know if that was really a thing. And so I dropped out after a year and I saved my money and I moved to LA and just sort of worked out.
I think the first thing I ever saw you in was Brick. That was when I first became aware of you. But you've been working a lot since then, which is great. Coming to The Boneyard, it's a new release from Lionsgate, so congrats on that. How did you get this part? Like, did somebody send you to read it? Like, what was your first impression of it when you heard about it?
Yeah, they sent it to me to read. The character, I think at that point was a man, and because one of the other characters was going to be a woman, and it got swapped. So it was nice because Asif and I had a conversation, and he was very open to and Vince to talking to me about like the changes, to make it a woman and do it with care, as opposed to just changing the pronouns.
And you play a cop in this one. You play a detective, and I understand that it's based on true events. So like, what did you do any prep for that? Did you have to like research? Did you do like ride-alongs and stuff like that?
I did have the opportunity to speak to somebody who had been a female detective about what her experience was like. And I got as much information as I could from that and applied it to my character.
Did she actually work on the murders that had happened, or?
No, unfortunately, no, it's totally separate. But I just kind of wanted to know what that experience was like and what her day-to-day life was like and how it was to relate to the other detectives and to work on cases and that sort of thing.
There's a couple of things in this where well, I don't want to give too much away, but I think you kind of feel like your partner has slighted you a little bit, or he's keeping you in the dark. And do you think that that's something that real detectives would experience, like if they're women sort of in a man's world kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And she definitely said that it was very hard to be a woman, in that environment. And so that was definitely something that I carried with me when I, approached the role.
You got some heavy hitters in this film. You work you have a couple of scenes with Mel Gibson, and I'm sure people are kind of curious what he's like. Was that intimidating at all, or like how did you feel about working with him?
I mean, I think it's always a little intimidating when you are suddenly sitting across and, doing a scene with somebody that you grew up watching in many, many movies. But yeah, it was very low key and it was interesting to get to watch his process in person.
Was it like a real ensemble type environment where I don't know if you guys were rehearsing or anything like that, but it felt like a very like on location type of movie. You guys are in the desert.
Yeah, we were in the desert. You know, Brian and I spent a lot of time together because we played partners and it seemed very important to like build that relationship and also he's just like awesome. So we had a lot of fun together but it was great when we got to work with everybody as well.
The two of you together seem very natural.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I thought it was very like natural. I know from last year you don't like to watch yourself,
Yeah.
so I assume that you haven't seen this movie yet.
Yeah, I know. It's terrible. I will at some point. It's really weird. I can watch it after a certain period of time and then I can kind of because it is good to see and learn, like things like, oh. But the problem is all I see when I watch myself is like everything I could have done better. So that's just me.
I mean, I think that happens to filmmakers too. You're always looking at, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. If you're a chef, you got to taste the food at some point, to
Right, but but that's the difference though. Like if you're the editor, if you're the director, you get to sit there and watch it over and over and actually like make little tweaks. Like I don't get to do anything once I'm there on set and then it's out of my hands and that drives me crazy. So I want to direct.
What do you feel like if you were to direct? Would you what kind of project would you kind of center on? Would you star in it as well?
No, I actually just wrote something and there were two female characters and one was a smaller supporting character that I kind of wrote for myself. And I even decided that if I do get it made, then I'm not going to play either because I'd rather just be behind the camera the entire time and actually and I wrote it to be like really small because I want control. I think that's the thing that I always tell every like young filmmaker is to write something you can make as cheaply as possible because it's so much easier to get the money. Everybody writes like a $3 million movie. Sorry, this is a subject I feel very passionately about. Everybody writes a $3 million movie that they think there's going to get made, and it's just like it's so hard to get those movies made, and then it's so hard to be profitable on those movies. And then you might not get to make another movie. So, yeah. I love indies.
Yeah, I know you work quite a bit in the indie film world, and but you worked a lot on television, which I'm sure like a really different environment too.
Yeah.
What was kind of the biggest difference between doing like a series project and doing something like this?
Well, the nice thing I think about a film is the beginning, the middle, and the end, so you get to like create like the character arc beforehand and then like really get in and explore it. Whereas with TV, it's constantly fluctuating and you don't actually know what's to come, a lot of the time, which is exciting too, because you're like, wait, my character's doing that. Oh, okay,
They don't give you like an outline for the character or anything beforehand. They don't say, okay, but sorry, you're going to die in 6 episodes, or they just kind of you're just going week to week.
Yeah, a lot of time, yeah. Well, sometimes, I mean, sometimes they're like, okay, you're going to be done at this time, and you don't, yeah. But sometimes you don't know what's going to happen.
Doing films like this, what's kind of the biggest takeaway? Like, what does it do for you artistically?
Well, it's always interesting to explore a new character and a new world, and in this case, I think that it is really nice to be able to bring a story like this to a larger audience.
Do you know much about the backstory, like the true events that this was inspired by?
Yeah, a bit. Yeah, I mean, it was loosely inspired by the West Mesa murders, which continue to be unsolved to this day. And it was 12 women they found the remains of that were mostly all sex workers. And so because of that, there weren't, and a lot of them were estranged from their families. Some of them were like teenage runaways. And because of that, there wasn't like a huge appetite to solve the murders. There were definitely some officers who worked very, very hard to try and make that happen, but they didn't necessarily have the support of like the broader community. There weren't people, beating down the doors to make sure that this killer was caught and these women's.
Is that why you think the director? Is that why he created this project?
Well, the writer actually, he knew some of the women, like he was involved, so it was a very personal story for him. And I know he spent a long time, actually working to write the script and tell the story in a meaningful way.
I would imagine that would give you a kind of a greater sense of importance. Just to be clear, you're not doing the true story of this. It's inspired by.
Inspired by, yes.
It's still, I think, you kind of want to get the message across, and it does feel like it's maybe more important than if you were doing something that didn't have that kind of truth behind it.
Yeah, definitely.
I wanted to ask you, I know you always got a lot going on. What can we look for you coming up in next?
I have a project called Monster Summer, that is going to be out in October with Mason Thames and a bunch of great kids. Yeah, it's a really fun kind of Goonies-esque movie.
All right, very cool. We'll look for that. And Nora, thank you so much.
Thank you. So nice chatting with you and seeing you again.
This is the BTRP Media Network.